An evening for this afternoon. Welcome everybody to the annual business meeting. We're very pleased to have you all here today, and hopefully we can get through everything quickly so we can get into at least the second half of the football game, right? That aside, if there are any questions or any discussion, obviously we'll stay here as long as we need to go over that. But just a quick word of prayer, and then we'll get started here. Heavenly Father, thank you again for bringing us together here. We are thankful for this community. We're thankful for the joy that you provide us, even in our dark times, and thankful for this group of people who's with us through all of our times. And we ask that you be with us as we discuss important business before the church, and be with us every week and every day as we continue to serve you. We ask this all in your name. Amen. First item was approval of minutes from the June and the August business meetings, which I believe were in the packets. And I would note that there were a bunch of printed copies. If electronic version was sent around in advance of this meeting, or a link to it was sent in advance of this meeting. If you do have that, we only printed enough copies for folks who didn't really have access to the electronic version. So if you don't need it, please share it with somebody who does. Who didn't get the electronic version. So anyways, are there any comments, questions regarding previous minutes? Are there any objections to adopting the previous minutes as drafted? Seeing no objections, we'll assume everybody votes in the affirmative and if they're adopted. Okay. We're going to go into the reports. Pastor Kurt, if you would like to give us some reports here.
Oh, I will.
It's going to be a really long report.
We're joyful.
Well, all kidding aside, I have a lot that I would like to say, but I'm going to limit my remarks to just several things. But I want to begin by just saying thank you. And thank you on a number of levels. Thank you for being the faithful church that you are. Thank you for weathering the last couple of years. We were talking as we were going through the line, and Scott was reminding me when his daughter got married, and to me it seems like it was about 3 years ago. And he said, no, it was in December of 2021. Right, Nancy?
Right.
So it was a while ago, but still, and I don't know if you're like me, but everything kind of gets jumbled up with the way things have been. It's been such a joy to be back together as well. So I just want to say thank you. And thank you too, personally. I feel very supported. Both Eliona and I do. And it's a gift to be a part of this church. So thank you. I'd like to look at the past year and just mention a couple of things. I want to talk about the pastoral transition, or as our chairman, Pete Johnson, said, the thoughtful pastoral transition, and then also kind of look forward just a bit. But this last year, I was trying to think, how do you characterize the past year? And I would say loss, reconnection, and renewal. We've experienced loss over this past year, and if you look, at the report of those that have passed away in the last year, it's been a lot, and that affects everybody, the families, but our pastoral staff as well. So, but at the same time, it's kind of like life, right? I mean, on the one hand, you have things that you struggle with and things that are challenging. But then in the midst of all that, then there's really good things too. And I feel like we're in the midst of a really good thing happening here. You may have noticed there's a number of new families that have started attending the church. There's, in my mind, there's a sense of renewed optimism, renewed joy, to borrow that word. There's momentum. That's how I would describe it. And it's really been a lot of fun to be part of that. I feel like there's a new spirit as well in our church, too. I was reflecting back on the first council meeting that I attended after I came as your interim pastor. And if some of you were there, you remember we were reading a book called Canoeing the Mountains. It was about cultural change in the church. And the council was pretty clear that we kind of need to have a new day. And I said, well, explain what you mean by that. And they did. And I said, well, what you're describing really is going to take 7 to 10 years. And I remember the looks on some people's faces like, are you kidding me? You planted a church. Can't we do this in a year? And no, we couldn't. But Kirk Johnson and I talked a lot. And we agreed to pray for 5 new families that would come to our church, that would engage, that would be part of the ministry of our church. And God is seemingly answering those prayers. And it's not just because Kirk and I have prayed, but all of you have. And so I think it's a great new season in our church, and I'm really thrilled about that. Let me say a word about the pastoral transition, and then Pete Johnson is going to address this in more detail later in the meeting. But there's been a lot of thought, there's been a lot of discussion, there's been a lot of prayer. I just want to say that Pastor Pete is doing a fantastic job. He has basically accomplished everything that we've asked of him, certainly in his first year, and even more, because as we all know, you don't lack energy. But it's been really good. And Drew said one day, you know, Pastor Pete is the best outreach pastor ever. And there's truth to that. And the fact that we have new families here with young kids, a lot of that credit goes to Pete and Ann, you know, for just connecting with people. So we're really glad. We are halfway through this transition. If you remember, it was a 3-year plan. We're now at about 1.5 years. And as part of that plan, I'm going to be taking some time away in February and March. And Pastor Pete is going to be in charge of things. And the idea there is to give him an opportunity to continue to discern whether this is God's call for him, and also to give you as a congregation the opportunity to discern whether he's the guy for the job. And Pete Johnson will say more about that, but we kind of went round and round about this. We certainly noted some of the things that we heard at the last congregational meeting about timing and all of that, and we sort of, as a leadership team, landed on the idea that this is the appropriate time to do that. I have to say, it's been hard for me to agree to this, just because it's such a great time to be a part of the church. I mean, if things were going really badly, it's like, okay, but it's just been a lot of fun. And so I think it'll be a really good thing. And one of the concerns was, well, is he going to have enough support and help? And I think we've answered that, and I think the answer is yes. And you'll say more about it too when you talk. Anyway, we're halfway through that. Even now, Pete's taking on more responsibilities with worship planning, with staff leadership, with pastoral care, and so kind of dipping his toe into some of that. But we also don't want you to lose your passion for reaching out to people in the community. So that's all I'm going to say about that right now. And the last thing, I'm talking about the future, continuing to reach out to the community with the love of Christ. And you know, when you first read that, you think, well, any church could say that. I mean, mission statements are really kind of generic to a certain degree anyway. But I feel like we've really done that. And I think all of the events that we've done over the past 5 years with, Fall Fest, all those kinds of things, are really beginning to bear fruit. We're seeing people that have started coming to our church because 2 years ago they came to an event. And I also want to mention that our youth ministry is a huge part of that. So Drew and Nate, interns, Grace, thank you for all you do with kids. Drew will say more about this, but our kid program that kind of struggled along for a few years is now not struggling along so much. I think we had, 20-some kids there a couple weeks ago on a chaotic, joyful chaos. But it all works together, I guess is what I'm saying. And so we're beginning to see that happen, and that's a really wonderful thing. Northwest Compass, we continue to be involved with them, and I know Pete's looking for ways to kind of expand that ministry. More planned outreach events. Defrost that we did last spring, we had to postpone it several times because of the weather, because it was still frosty. But we're going to continue to do more planned outreach events and intentional community engagement. We're really trying to think of ways that we can engage with the parents of, KIC students, youth group students, in creative ways to connect with them relationally. And so that's going to be a continued focus. So the outreach part, but also growing deeper in our own faith, our own love for Christ, and our love for each other. Small groups, prayer groups. I talk a lot about our Wednesday evening Bible study. We've gotten to the point there where there can be as many as 20 people. I'd like to see that kind of become 2 groups, because it really allows for more personal connection and sharing. How do we nurture, how do we care for those folks that are new attendees? How do we integrate them into the life of the church and invite them into ministry in appropriate ways and helpful ways? And also to encourage those of you that have been here for a long time that feel like you've done your thing. Just want to say, well, there's more. There's more, and we want to think of creative ways to have you be engaged too, because we know that's important to you. So there's a whole lot more I could say, but I'm just grateful for this past year. Look forward to the next year and all that God has in store, and it's just been a lot of fun. I'm really grateful for our leadership team, for the new folks, for the new person, that is Sylvia, that'll be coming on if you vote her in, but for everyone on the leadership team and for our staff. I think Drew, Nate, Pete, Dawn, if she were here, we enjoyed being together. And that makes a big difference in how we do ministry. So thank you for everything. If there's any questions, fire away and I'll do my best to answer. So you can see he has an iPhone with all of his notes. I have a piece of paper. This is a generational thing. And his print, I can't even read it.
That's really good. Well, just following up with what Kurt was saying, being here at Northwest Covenant Church, the staff that I get to be a part of and work side by side with, and the church community, all the members, a part of this church. It's just been a real blessing to be here and to serve alongside such wonderful, loving staff and congregation. So just I am blessed, and this church is blessed to have such great staff and great community. Wanted to give a just brief outline of community outreach over the last year, and then just a few minor points about future and some of the transitional thoughts just over these 3 months into the new year. So, yeah, as Kurt was mentioning a little bit, our outreach events have been a great success with our community. We've connected a lot with Trunk and Treat and Defrost, two of our events on our property, and then we've been going down to the Mount Prospect Block Party. And so one of our mission statements from our team, the outreach team, is serve the community with the love of Christ. And that's what we've been doing, present in our community. Our community has started to get to know us, see us, just by our presence in the community. And that's just such a great witness to the love of Christ, being present. The community knows we're here, knows we care, and we're for our community. And just a word about our community outreach team. We have a great leadership team, which is a core 7 people. But I actually look out in this room and I see the outreach team. You are the outreach team. Because Trunk and Treat, Defrost, Block Party, these are all hands on deck type of events. And this church, I can't tell you how grateful and thankful I am for all of you. Serving donuts, dressing up like the Mad Hatter, you know, just everything. Setting up a table, greeting people, refilling candy, doing crafts. The list is endless of all the ways that this church serves this community. And truly, you are a part of the outreach team. We couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much. Our community partnerships continue. We're excited how we've been connecting with Northwest Compass. We're looking to expand that a little bit. There's more opportunities beyond just the food pantry. So we're praying and discerning about that, seeing how we can connect even further with Northwest Compass. And I just have a few highlight numbers I want to share with you. It's in the report, but I just wanted to speak it here just as an encouragement to our church and the outreach we've been doing. So in 2020, at Northwest Compass, we had a rotating list of 26 people who volunteered 198.5 hours at the food pantry. Come on, give yourselves a round of applause for that. At our Trunk and Treat, we collected and donated 380 pounds of food. And we have a community benevolent fund. We have an internal benevolent fund, but we also have a community benevolent fund. And whether it be a random phone call, personal connection with the local pastor, or meeting someone through an outreach event, I've had the honor to connect with some families that are in need within our community. And we've been able to generously provide $3,574 to families with some real financial need in our community. So thank you for your generosity and for the opportunity that I get to receive these calls. And we can't take care of everyone, but through prayer and discernment, talking with the outreach team, we can provide for some. And so thank you for your generosity for how we care for the community. And lastly, just about this last year, the annual report wouldn't be complete without talking about the 90-foot obstacle course.
Let's go!
Let's go! Let's set it up after this. Bounce off the Tortorices. So we invested with the development fund for outreach. We bought a 90-foot obstacle course. It's in the garage right now. It takes about 50 people to set up. It's a beast.
We've only used like 65. We're missing it. We haven't used the full thing.
Yeah, there's parts that we haven't used yet. That's how big it is. But anyways, we usually rent a bounce house or an obstacle course 4 times a year at $450 a time. And so we thought, you know what? We need to invest and buy an obstacle course. And it has really turned out to be an amazing thing. we're making traffic as people are driving by. They're just like, looking, what? Kids from the neighborhood. When we set up for youth group on Wednesday nights, kids from the neighborhood will just stop by and run through it. We set up one Wednesday night. There was an 80-year-old lady who just happened to be strolling by. She took a bounce. And so...
How about the yard guys?
The yard guys, well, the yard guys actually, one of them was FaceTiming one of their family members, like, hey, check this out. You gotta come check this out. But that's on our property. My hope is we get a trailer for it, and then we can continue to bless the community with it. Just as another tool and resource to reach the community. Maybe head over to the high schools, different community events that are happening on. Maybe make an appearance at the Mount Prospect Block Party. Who knows? So, anyways, we're really excited about the bounce house, the obstacle course, and just how we continue to reach the community. So that was a little bit about this last year. Just briefly, as I look forward to this next year of ministry here at Northwest Covenant Church, I mentioned this at the last annual meeting, but I'm really focusing in on a few priority areas. And those priority areas are community outreach. So that will remain a big priority within this 3-month period of time, as well as the entire year. That's a huge priority for me. New families are a big priority as well. We have seen some growth there. And so I've been meeting up with Pete Johnson, and under some great encouragement from him, I had all these thoughts in my brain about this, but through Pete's encouragement, I put the thoughts on paper. Whoa. And it has actually been...
How long was the page?
It was, yeah. But this new family connection plan, just to connect with families, have a good process for welcoming, integrating, and connecting with families has developed. So I'm really excited for that. Actually, this coming Friday, we have a dinner party for 16 people at Trezeros with a handful of new families, some of our existing families, just a time to connect with some of our new families. We got a great team of childcare and cooks here. Landon's, whoop whoop, I see you. So a huge team, and this is what I mean about our church being so supportive. We have these great ideas to connect with people. We have the Landons, we have us, we got Signe, we've got Judy Johnson, we've got the Hackett's, we've got Christy Child, we've got people who come out of the woodwork as the body of Christ to support these different ministries that we're doing. So I just thank God for you and how we partner in ministry together. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Priority areas, community outreach, huge priority, new families. Third priority area is pastoral responsibilities. So I'm going to be gaining some more moments for preaching and teaching, pastoral care, worship planning, specifically within these upcoming 3 months. And monthly preachers, this is a good time to share this? Perfect. An idea that has been developing in my mind as we've been thinking about this transition and looking forward to the future is one way to really help give myself some margin and breathing room as I can't do 2 jobs. One thing that can help out with that is actually to have a monthly preacher. And this can be something that continues on into this calendar year. And so one thing that we've been thinking through and planning about is developing a monthly preacher, also having a female voice in the pulpit to bring in some diversity of voice to bless our community in a wonderful way. And am I good to share the name of this person that we've been thinking about?
Jennifer Swan.
As long as there's music written to it, I'll sing it.
Nice. Oh, good. Yeah. So we have been talking with a colleague within the Covenant Church. Her name is Sarah Winter. She was formerly at Deer Grove Covenant Church, and through some series of life events, she has some opportunity and some availability. And so the way this is going to work is it's going to be kind of like a 4-month chunk at a time, and with the calendar year to be in mind, to have a regular female preacher in the pulpit, and just checking in with her as I plan out a trimester preaching calendar. We'll check in with her and see how things are going and continue to plan out the calendar year preaching. So really excited about that. That will free me up once a month with preaching and planning for that, to provide some pastoral care, worship planning, and then also with Drew and the rest of our team helping out to just balance that out, to give a little extra time for there. So really excited about that, excited to take on some more pastoral responsibilities within the community. And the last priority area that I've been focusing on, and you may hear me talk about often, is developing teams, ministry teams. And this is something I really see taking us into the future, is the need for the body of Christ to come together and to serve with one another. I've always said this isn't the Pete show. It's not about me, it's not about us, it's about serving God and serving the community. And one thing that's beautiful about our church is we actually do have a lot of operating functional ministry teams. And so my vision is to come alongside and just encourage those teams, support those teams, and continue to build new teams as needed as we continue in ministry together. That's it for me today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pastor Pete. And serving the community is serving God and serving the church. So thank you for pointing us in the right direction on so many different fronts. A lot of people say to me, oh, thank you for your work and on the leadership team and whatnot. It's really not a whole lot, because these folks do so much. I mean, we have such fantastic staff all around. We have the pastors, we have the other members of the leadership team, we have Drew and Nate, and all of our interns, and Grace, and Joshua now, and Mike, and all the volunteers as well. And it's just a very fortunate position to be able to show up for meetings and basically say, well, sounds like everything's going well. And I mean, we have some real discussions on various issues here and there, but overall, the staff does a fantastic job, and it's nice to be able to let them do their work. Drew just came back from his honeymoon. Congratulations on that. Yeah. So, but just want to thank you again for all the work that you've been doing, and as noted, Kick is really starting to take off here. All the people from the neighborhood and our kids who've been here for many years as well are all being so wonderfully served by you and Nate and the interns and everybody else. So want to thank you on that front as well. I don't know if you want to say anything or just...
I'm being serious. 2 minutes. These guys said they were being brief, and keep it going. Also, this is a good time to announce that I'm going to be taking a 2-month sabbatical, and Kay Child is going to step in my stead. I agree. Just quickly, personally, Katie and I just want to thank you for all the support you've given us over a very busy summer and a busy couple of months. So thank you so much, and also supporting me on my seminary journey. I haven't flunked out yet, so that's good. We're moving along. It's been a great time to be a part of that community as well. And just a quick thank you to our interns, of course, and Grace and all of our volunteers who do so much. They really make the program go, and our kids. A lot of our stuff is student run, and they drive the bus, and I'm just kind of along for the ride. And also to Nate, I see you more than my wife, so yeah, Nate's the best. But yeah, it's been a great year of ministry for us. It feels very normal to get back into our rhythms. Just feels nice to be in a relationship with students and show up to events and have youth group every week and not have to worry about canceling it. And we're developing good rhythms again, which is wonderful. I'll touch on our kick program. It's been absolutely fantastic. It's definitely been kind of a curveball for me to step into the children's ministry side of things, but we're having fun with it, and having Grace along has been wonderful for me in a variety of different ways. Our adventure camp over the summer was wonderful as well. We're going to bring that back next summer. And the beauty of that program is that it is basically almost all student-led. So high schoolers stepping in, pouring into kids in our neighborhood, and we're seeing the fruit of that by kids at our kick program and investing in them and developing relationships. And also our kick program is a lot of high school students and other wonderful adult volunteers. So just very thankful for that. For the future, we're going to continue our normal retreat rhythms of fall and winter retreats with both groups, and then in our summer have a voyage trip, which is our discipleship trip, a high school trip actually to the Twin Cities to partner with an organization called Treehouse. It's a nonprofit group up in urban Minnesota areas, so we're going to partner with 2 of their youth groups and do life with them for a week, so that'll be very fun. And then our middle schoolers will be heading back to Covenant Points Island, which we go every summer, with no running water and no electricity and all that wonderful stuff. So a lot of really, really good things are happening, and just thankful for our staff and our youth men team and Pete, Pastor Kurt, and Pete for the support. So that was pretty brief. See, that's how these are supposed to be.
That was about 7 minutes.
Thank you, Drew. Next item on the agenda is a human resources ballot. We have 2 leadership team positions and the development fund chair position that need to be filled, or in one case just refilled. The first is the secretary position on the leadership team. Kurt Anderson has served very ably in that role, and he has agreed to serve the second term as secretary, and thank goodness, because I hate doing minutes. He is fantastic. He really is. It's a real art, I'll tell you.
He doesn't even have to look when he's...
No, in my day job, I have to do that occasionally. It's such a pain. Also, Sylvia Falk is our Chief Financial Officer, is being nominated to replace Jim Myers in that position. And then Jim Myers as the Development Fund Chair in place of Bert Applequist, whose 5-year term is coming to an end. So those are the nominations on the table. Are there any nominations from the floor? Any questions or concerns? Okay, on this one I'm going to ask for a vote. All in favor of the slate as described, please say yes by signifying aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, say nay. Great, thank you very much. And thank you for those who've served. I'll say a little bit more on that in a minute. And thank you for those who are coming on. These are important positions, and it's what makes the church move forward. It's the staff, it's the leadership team, it's the various committees, all working together. And I'll tell you, it's great to be around with these folks. Sometimes you can have serious discussions, but they're never unpleasant discussions, which is a fortunate position to be in. With that, we're going to now get the Financial Secretary report, Treasurer's report, and the presentation of the 2023 General Fund budget. So Jim, last time, Jim.
Thank you. Drew mentioned upstairs that this was a celebratory meeting, and he's right. It really is. I mean, you've heard so much already that's worthy of celebration, and I'd say please take some time to read through the annual report, because there's even more details in there, a lot of things that really, are worth celebrating. Now, I just wanted to assure you that just because we're transitioning to the financial portion of the meeting, the celebratory part is not over, all right? We still have a lot to celebrate. And I think it starts with you. I mean, the generosity of you all is a huge part of the celebration, particularly in this respect, with respect to your financial contributions. So thank you for that, and it is truly, something that we do want to celebrate. We also want to celebrate, how these resources are used, which is a lot of what we're talking about. The people and the ministries that are supported and the ways that, we are reaching people for God. And finally, I even want to kind of say, celebrate the process. I mean, it's very important. I mean, people don't necessarily always aren't that interested, or maybe want to hear about, kind of all the financial aspects, but it's very important. But from the finance team, which Sylvia is going to be working with going forward, but it's a great team with Roger and Carla and Dawn and Pastor Kurt, participating with that group. The leadership team and the discussions we have, and ultimately bringing this information to you guys so that it can be discussed and discerned and how we, steward our resources can be, kind of shared and perspective shared. So I do encourage you to, ask questions if there are any. But I wanted to, so getting back to the agenda then, there's a few things. I'm going to start with the financial secretary's report. So, and I know many of you maybe don't have printed copies. They were distributed via email. So I'll try to, kind of describe these so that it makes sense even if you're not, looking at the report. But the financial secretary's report, which Roger, very ably prepares each month, is sort of a summary of the giving of our congregation. So we've been tracking kind of all year, a little bit kind of behind where we were last year. Through October, we were running about 3% behind what our giving level was last year, and it was also about 10% short of what we were budgeted to, what we approved as a budget. November came in pretty strong. The November report is what is currently included in the annual report. November was a strong month. We actually, through November, are slightly ahead of where we were through last November. So it's actually a very good thing. We're about a 1.6% higher than where we were through November of 2021. So thank you for that. I mean, it's been great. It's still, about 94% of what we budgeted, so we're still a little bit short of what we budgeted for the year. But overall, it's great to see kind of that, growth from year over year. So that's the financial secretary's report. Also included in the annual report is the treasurer's report. And this is really, a combination of Carla and Dawn, really putting together this information. And this really kind of brings it all together, because it's not only the giving side of things, but it's also what we spend the money on. So go through it when you can. There's a lot of details in there in terms of, specific accounts and things that we're spending on. But overall, so the report that's in the package is October. We didn't have a chance, since November only ended a few days ago, we didn't have a chance to finalize the November reports yet. But through October, our general fund is actually at about a $27,000 surplus, which is a great place to be, at this time of the year. Oftentimes, we've been, at deficit positions, throughout the year, and, trying to make that up at the end of the year. So we're actually in a very good position with $27,000. The strong giving that I just mentioned from November, I think will likely even, bump that up a little bit for November, kind of going into the final month. So we are in a very, favorable position. And again, so you can go through that. This report also includes other funds, in addition to the general fund. So there's a summary of the development fund and various other restricted and designated funds. So please go through that at your leisure. I guess for right now, since those are the two sort of regular routine reports, I'll stop for a minute and see if there's any questions on those two reports before I move into the budget discussion. And of course, you can feel free to email or reach out to myself or someone from the finance team if you do have questions that come up later. But for now, we'll move into the discussion of the 2023 budget. So I'll kind of go through again, like I said, page by page on here and just sort of, describe the pages in this budget presentation. The first page, which is sort of this graphical blue, yellow, green, just sort of provides a real historical perspective of giving, our congregational giving, general fund giving specifically, over the years. And largely when we start talking about the budget, what we really are really trying to assess initially is what do we think is a realistic, reasonable projection of how we can, support the ministries. So, and right now, for the past 2 years, we've actually budgeted the same amount, $555,000 in congregational giving. It's what we budgeted back in 2021. It's also what we budgeted for this year in 2022. And based on kind of where we are right now, it's what we're proposing to budget again for 2023. Like I said, we're not quite meeting that budget amount this year, so a giving level of $555,000 for next year is probably going to be somewhere in the range of a 4 to 5% increase over where we are this year. We don't know, obviously, the final numbers because we haven't finished the year, so it'll depend on how December ends. But even so, we feel like that level of giving is appropriate, and then of course that drives how we budget everything else. Kind of knowing that that's how much money that we have for budgeting purposes. So I'll just sort of summarize some of the key points on the second page, which is sort of a summary level of the budget. And if you happen to, are looking at it, you'll see that the bulk of our budget really is related to staff and sort of operational aspects of the building and operations. And then, there's various amounts that are dedicated for the specific ministry teams, the worship team, the youth team, Christian education, congregational care, outreach, and missions. In all cases, the budget that we're proposing for those ministry teams is at least as high as, what there's, or higher than what they're spending this year. In some instances, it might be slightly lower than maybe what they were budgeted for this year, but in all cases, it's at least as high or higher than the current spending. So there's no, reduction in resources towards any of those ministry teams. From a, operational standpoint, we just try to budget consistently what the costs are, things like utilities, things like insurance, a lot of things that we don't have a whole lot of control about. So we feel like we budgeted those, appropriately based on our best information, and then our staff. We certainly want to, reward our staff for the good work that they do. And there's a couple of points that I want to make just with respect to the staff. There is built into this budget a 2% merit or cost of living adjustment that's applied to all staff. And then one other thing from a benefit standpoint is that we've historically offered a 403B to our staff, which did not have any sort of matching provision from us, but it was an opportunity for staff to contribute to a 403B retirement plan. We're building into the budget this year for full-time non-pastoral staff that we will match contributions that they make up to basically a cap of $1,000. So if a staff member contributes $2,000 to their own retirement plan, we'll contribute $1,000. And that's, you know, I feel like just an important thing to really start to try to, you know, provide some security, some future planning for, you know, for our staff. So that's part of this budget. Let's see. And then maybe the last thing I would just say about the budget, it still includes, as it has for the last couple of years, the opportunity for you as a congregation to designate that when you give money to our church, you can designate it that you either wish that a portion of that goes to the ECC, or you can designate that you wish that it does not, you know, there's not a contribution made to the ECC with respect to your donation. So that's an option that's still available to you with respect to your giving. Just getting back to staffing, the third page just sort of summarizes the staffing. And I just wanted to call out a couple of things. We do still have, if you look at the one, this one has green and yellow paper colors.
Oregon Duck, please.
Oregon too.
What happened to them?
But the green indicates where we still have development fund that is supporting staff positions. So both Pastor Pete's position and Nate's position, as well as one of the intern positions, still have development fund support through 2023 to support those positions. Going forward, you know, like I said earlier, I mean, part of this process is discernment and discussion, and there will be discussions about resources that we can, you know, support in the future when development fund support is no longer, you know, available to support certain things. So, but for right now, for 2023, those are the positions that are supported. And then I just highlighted in yellow some things that maybe are a little bit different than the way it was budgeted for this year. So in our music program, we now have a director of music and worship, as well as a coordinator of music and choir director positions. So those are the two positions that exist in this budget going forward. The organist, accompanist is included in that director position. And then just sort of maybe just a change in titling or and so forth with respect to children's ministries. We now have a children's ministry coordinator, part-time position. And then Pete mentioned this in his comments, but I included on here as well, just a reference to the monthly preacher position that Pete was talking about. So there's more details, you know, in the budget. If you want to kind of go through in greater detail, please do so. But for right now, I guess I will open it up to any questions. Yeah.
How did you come up with only 2% cost of living? That seems awful slim.
It is slim, and you know, it's kind of trying to balance the resources and what we feel like, you know, with competing resources. So we certainly didn't want to not have an increase. So it is. I agree with you, but it felt like that's what we felt like was kind of the right balance with the other things that we wanted to invest in as well.
My question is on page 3 of 6, where it talks about the worship ministry team. And I'm wondering, is that inclusive of the choir and organist?
No, it does not. That does not include the staff positions.
Okay.
That just includes various non-labor costs. So it would be things like guest speakers, guest musicians, instrument tuning, a variety of other things, but not the staff positions. No, that's included in the top line, just where it says compensation.
Okay, so that's proposed as $11,000 for 2023?
Correct.
Okay.
Which, like I said earlier, the budget for this year was slightly higher than that. but we're not spending nearly that much this year, so even that budgeted amount is well above what we've actually spent this year. Yes?
Isn't it true that the development fund was subsidizing like the special music?
Yeah, the development fund has had
And we're done with that.
right, so as part of the development fund, there was a music enhancement project, which has really spanned over the last few years. And by the policies of the development fund, projects can only be funded for a maximum of 3 years. That one was actually extended 1 year because of the whole COVID year, but you're right, that's no longer available. So that sort of expenditure will need to, come back into this operating budget. Let's see, did I miss anything? Any other key points from the leadership team or anybody else? I think I hit the big points. So, yeah, we did. I referenced November, so we actually just saw a very preliminary glimpse of November results, and it'll be even slightly better than what we're showing for October. So I do think we're gonna. Right now, the October report showed that we were at I think it was a $27,000 surplus. November will probably go a bit higher, and then we'll see how December ends. So we are likely going to end the year in a very favorable position in our general fund. Probably unlike anything we've seen in several years.
Jim, if I could just give you an opinion to take back and finalize the budget. I think I would like to see our younger staff members at least keep up with the inflation rate. So if you guys could look at that again as a budgeting thing, that is just a good practice that we try to keep these young people that are getting started.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point, and we can discuss that further.
Thank you.
I think we want to, we've sort of settled on the $555,000. So to the extent, we do have some discretion to move things around within there. One thing I would say is I agree with you, and one thing we're trying to do in that respect to support particularly our younger staff is the 403B match. So that's something new. That's something that hasn't existed before, where we're actually providing some additional compensation in the form of a match. So,
Okay, thank you.
all right. Do we have to accept the other reports or just the budget?
I'm not sure what we've done in the past. Just the budget. I'm here now. The budget.
I am in.
Okay, so do I just?
Well, no, that's fine. We have the budget before you that's coming from the leadership team for 2023, so I don't think we need a second on that. So it's a motion, unless there's any further questions or proposed amendments. Hearing none, all in favor of the budget is drafted and before you, please indicate by saying aye if you're in favor of it. Aye. Are there any opposed? Great, the budget is adopted. And yes, we will consider that. I mean, it's always a challenge because, if you start doing too much and you don't have the finances later on too, then that becomes an issue. But we do want to, as Jim said, wanted to recognize the strong work that our full-time staff is doing and find ways to recognize that. Before you go, just as noted, Jim is going to be stepping off leadership team, and as CFO, I mean, he's just done a phenomenal job. I can't tell you how much. I am not the numbers guy. Fortunately, he is, and we just, have calm understanding and very clear explanations of all the numbers. Thank you, Jim. We really appreciate it. Yeah. Next, get an update on the development fund here. Just a few updates, and again, another cause for celebration. Yeah. Seriously.
Yes, that's for sure. The development fund guidelines, which you approved, was done 5 years ago. And 2022 marked the 5th year of the guidelines for the development fund. We started at $2,570,000 in the development fund, and so far we spent $1.7 million. At the end of the year, we'll end up with probably about $1,080,000 left to go. So it's going, that's the purpose of it. The purpose was to enhance the ministries of Northwest Covenant Church. And I think we have accomplished that far and beyond what any of us ever dreamed would happen. $795,000 of that has gone to ministries outside of our walls. Almost $800,000 we've given to others outside of ourselves. We've spent $350,000 on staff salaries, which has allowed us to do a number of things, including hiring Pete and things like that, which again is to enhance the ministry of Northwest Covenant Church. And we've spent almost $300,000 on building improvements. So can you imagine where we would have been without the development fund? Would we have done any of these things? So we've really been blessed, and there's joy in what we've been able to do to enhance our ministries. And we still have roughly $1 million plus to go, but at some point that's going to be gone. And then we have to bite the bullet or do whatever on that whole thing. And as Jim mentioned, one of the main things of the development fund, the word development means giving seed money or helping develop new things, and that's what we have done. But a number of those projects have now ended their 3 years of funding. And so they either go on the budget, as Jim mentioned, or we don't do them anymore. And one this year that was particularly different, Covenant Harbor and Covenant Point, Harbor Point Ministries, we offered a matching for them. They wanted money, we authorized $50,000, but $25,000 of that was given up front. And then if they could raise another $25,000, we would match that. And they raised $28,000. So in essence, our 50 grew to $78,000. So that was a good thing. And again, how we're using our fund wisely to help others outside of our church. In the reports, you can see that where the money has gone this year. But again, it's been great. We're enhancing our ministry, and that's what we're supposed to do. Pete, that's my report.
Before Bert steps away, also want to thank him.
Yeah.
No, seriously. When we started developing fund money and talked about, okay, what are we going to do with this? It's so easy to see that it could have fallen into acrimony, fighting, really ripping a church apart. We've seen this in other communities out there. But instead, under Verge's leadership, organizing the guidelines, the priorities, the processes, the meetings that we've all had together. This has been, again, a cause for celebration rather than a call to strife, if you will. And it's really, so much of it is because of your leadership. So thank you so much for getting us up and going. So I'm somewhere in between. I've used my phone, but I also have some money.
You're at that age.
Well, then, I was going to say, it kind of reflects, right? Going from way up there to me down there. The next item on the agenda was just the overview of the planned, as Kurt pointed out, I like to use the term thoughtful transition because I couldn't think of anything better. So as many of you may or may not recall, when we hired Pastor Pete, or more accurately, when we started looking for somebody in that position, the pastor of community outreach and I can never remember development. The idea was to take a new approach and rather than just bring somebody in and call a pastor and hopefully it continues to work out and whatnot. We'd instead bring somebody in with the idea of transitioning them in as the senior pastor over a period of time. The intention was to do this over a 3-year period. Pastor Pete, as you may recall, started in August of 2021, and as was been previously noted, his salary is currently being paid through the development fund, and as such is limited to 3 years. January 2023 marks about the halfway point of this 3-year period. I would note that it's not a given that Pastor Pete will be called to a position of senior pastor. Yeah, I say that as a procedural thing as much as anything, as remains hope and expectations. Or that, you know, if he is called, that he would accept. And that's the way it should be. But that's why we're doing it this way. It's the thoughtful transition. As part of this thoughtful transition, leadership team felt that it was important that this actually, again, be a thoughtful transition, including an opportunity for Pastor Pete and the congregation to see how the role would potentially work out for him should we continue to move forward. And so we're looking at this approximately 2-month period of time here, where Pastor Kurt will be here through January 15th, and then he's going to be going to the Midwinter Conference, January 23rd to the 27th. And then, you know, generally speaking, be away while Pastor Pete takes on all these additional roles that we've discussed before. And he'd be doing it until Pastor Kurt returns on March 28th. So that's just before Easter, correct? Making sure I have the dates right there. You know, still be available if necessary, Pastor Kurt, that is, but, you know, to make this test work and really give us a sense, and again, this is for our benefit as a congregation, Pastor Pete's benefit as well, too. Need to give Pastor Pete some space and have some time alone without Pastor Kurt breathing down his neck. You know, this is an exciting time. We felt that this time made the most sense because it's a relatively quiet time in the calendar. With the community outreach, is, you know, Pastor Pete was talking about with the various, you know, the defrosts and the summer events and all of that going on. The block party downtown, that's all during the spring, summer, fall. This seemed to make good sense for doing this portion of thoughtful transition. And then, you know, again, the 3-year period goes through August 2024, and then we'll be checking in with the congregation. Pastor Pete, okay, do we want to continue forward with this based upon everything that we've seen and how everything has not worked out during that time period? With that in mind, just wanted to open it up if there's any questions or concerns that folks have. Happy to have the discussion. Yes, Julie.
Well, at one point, we had Dick Luco here doing some of the spiritual formation / pastoral care. And I'm just wondering if who will be filling in that niche during this position, this thoughtful transition. It just seems like that's more than what our senior pastor was doing, and
Pastor Pete's going to be taking on a lot of that role at this point. And part of the, you know, part of what I see this happening through this process as well is, okay, where are we going to need additional support, assuming we move forward in this? I mean, the bottom line is after this 3-year period, when the development fund funding runs out, essentially we're going to have, once the budget changes and revenues change considerably, we are going to have the resources essentially for one full-time pastor. Because we are paying for the second pastor through the development fund. That's not a forever kind of thing. But let's see what kind of support Pastor Pete. Again, the presumption always is that, you know, it's going to move forward as we want it to be. I just never want it to be assumed that. That's why I'm always kind of caveating that. But, you know, as Pastor Pete moves into this position, what kind of support does he need? What kind of, and we've already talked about one approach here that we're going to be doing with the additional monthly pastor, monthly speaker. Part of the idea behind that also was by having somebody regular, they get to know us too, and they become more of the community, as opposed to just, you know, I don't want to say random guest speaker, but, you know, this guest speaker and that guest speaker from wherever the case may be. We have somebody kind of regularly coming in. Doesn't mean necessarily that they're going to be serving in a fully pastoral role, we're not calling somebody here, but somebody who does start to get to know the community. And again, as we start to see what the potential needs are with the new administration, for lack of a better term, you know, we can revisit exactly what that person or another person's role may be over time. I hope that all makes sense. It may have been, yeah, we're figuring it out. Is kind of, and that's part of this 2-month period, trying to figure out what we need. Yeah.
Because you know, in addition to seeing that we have an aging population and lots of people with lots of health issues and just needing extra support, that I would hate for there to be a gap in that because people stretch too thin. And then my other concern, and I think I expressed this at the last one, was that if we do move too quickly in terms of getting acclimated to the senior pastor role, there's what's happening with the outreach. Because it doesn't really matter if we're going to have a really great senior pastor if there aren't people in the pews.
Absolutely right. But again, this is why we thought the timing made sense on this, because it's a relatively quiet time as far as the church calendar goes between January and March compared to other times of the year. And so this is a time where, okay, we can have Pastor Pete take on more of these other responsibilities. As he said, you know, they've been doing a lot more work as far as the pastoral care, going out to Covenant Living in Northbrook and other such activities. It's figuring out, okay, where are we going to need that support going forward? Because at the end of the day, on or around August of 2024, we are going to be faced with a situation where we have one pastor. So let's figure out now, while we still can, while we still have time, resources, and whatnot, to figure out, okay, what are we going to need to do as far as staffing, as far as support and whatnot, to make sure that the needs of the aging population are addressed, as well as the needs of the community at large.
I would add something to it. Sure. I would just say, just so you know, I'm not, like, we're not going to go to Russia for 3 months. So, if for some reason we you know, it could happen where all of a sudden we had a number of people that were really ill or passed away or whatever, I'm available. So I'm certainly not going to say, well, once I take my leave, that's it. So we've talked about that too, because realize, you're right. And that's been one of the questions that people have asked. Well, what if, you know, somebody dies? Well, Pete's a pastor. I mean, he can, you know, do those pastoral things. But if it's a number of people, that's a different story. So, yeah, I just wanted to add that. So.
I mean, Dick was going to be around originally.
No.
No?
He was only temporary as well.
Well, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
It was a temporary, but we didn't expect to lose him this quickly.
No, but he was a 3-year.
3 years.
Right.
Yeah, he was there for almost.
Yeah. But I think to your point, you're right. I mean, and Pete and I have talked about this. It's an opportunity to see, well, where are the needs going to be? Because in 2024, the church is not going to be in a position to, well, it could be.
It might.
It might be higher than that. So we'll see what happens.
Hey, you know what? And that would be a great position to be in. But, you know, we'll see. Kelly.
Why don't we develop a pastoral team from the congregation? You know, with people that have a compassion for people in hospitals.
Well, actually, we do have a pastoral relations committee. Is it still called that now? Or?
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
you're talking more like a congregational care.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I
Like the
misunderstood.
deacons.
Right, somebody's in the
Yeah.
hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a team that does that. They do phenomenal work. But we're always looking for additional people to do it.
Well, I don't do that.
See,
I didn't know
I
that.
just said like that.
Yeah.
Really?
That's the
I
job.
don't have
Yeah, I mean, Carol Leonard does a phenomenal job
Yeah,
of wrangling along. Dale as well, too. Yeah. Are there any other questions or comments? Oh, Carol, go ahead.
You know, I remember a while back, the plan was that he would come and be our full-time pastor, and that Kurt was going to become the Dick Luco.
Yeah.
It would become the Dick Lugo.
You were stepping.
I can never become
So for those who couldn't hear, Carol was saying way back when that Pastor Pete would become the senior pastor, and effectively Kurt would become the pastor,
The Dick Luco.
the Dick Lugo.
And,
I'm sorry, I don't know how else to
I
characterize
wish
it.
you were over here to hear that.
You know, I think everybody understands the shorthand there.
Yeah, he was laughing, he's over sure.
Yeah, that's right.
and that seemed to appeal to you because it was part-time, and it was a nice way to still be in the work,
Yeah.
be working with Pete as a lead pastor.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, I have no idea, right? What's gonna happen in 2024. I probably should figure that out at some point.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and I think a lot of that is going to depend on, you know, where you are in your life, where, you know, we are with Pastor Pete, where we are with budgets, where we are with, where we figure out where our needs are after this 2-month period and beyond. I mean, we've got things that are going on with the youth program as well too, and some potential change, you know, issues we're going to have to address there with revenues and finances and all that. In prioritizing everything, I mean, the discussions are going to be a lot of fun over the next couple of years, frankly. And you know, we hope that with growth that we have the resources to continue and expand everything. But
We'll see.
yeah, but you know, we'll have those discussions, absolutely.
There are currently 15 churches in our conference that have no pastor. And so I say that because there's a huge need for interim ministry in our conference. Now, some of those places you may not want to go to, but the reality is that for somebody like me, before I moved to Northbrook, yeah, Nate and Drew are always trying to get me to get on the waiting list up there. There's a lot of need, you know, for interim ministry.
Yeah, and that's the thing, you know, we're also in a larger ecosystem, if you will, too, that we need to, you know, Kurt needs to figure out where he fits in there and all that, but we're hoping to learn, and that's, you know, again, that's kind of the point. Do it now, well, it's a year and a half out, and figure out what's going on and what we need and what support we need and where there may be some cracks if we're down to one pastor at one point and where we need some additional support. Do it now. It's part of a thoughtful transition rather than scrambling.
I just might add to make it thoughtful and prayerful, that we all should be in prayer about this and asking how God wants to grow our church in the days and weeks ahead.
Absolutely. No, thank you. And for those who couldn't hear, you know, be prayerful as well and ask God how we can best approach this in the weeks and months ahead. And years. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay. Hearing none, is there any other business that anybody would like to bring before the church?
I have a business.
Yeah.
Just that there's a lot of food left over, and I put some containers over there. So, and I'm not going to choose, you know, food for who likes what. So if you have something you'd like to take from there, fill the container and we'll wrap it up. And
For
send it
those who
home.
couldn't hear, don't leave food. That's the long and short. Go grab food before you leave.
Yeah.
Or have a second lunch. Is there anything else? For the good of one another, Pastor, would you like to close this out first?
I'd like young Drew to.
Drew, would you like to close this out?
Also, for the record, dibs on Kurt's office. All right, let's pray. Heavenly Father, we are thankful for a church community that cares so deeply about one another. It's so evident in this room today that you are present, that the Holy Spirit is here, as kids are screaming in the hallway, as we're having conversations. It's amazing, Lord. So we're just so thankful for our church family and our church community that does life together. And that's what you call us to do. So Lord, I pray as we continue to be prayerful and thoughtful about the things we discussed today, that you continue to encourage us along the way, help us work together to serve your kingdom and be your hands and feet. Thank you again for this day and the opportunity to gather. Amen.
And with that, we are adjourned.